Okay, welcome everybody. It's me. All of you should know who I am by now. It is time, once again, for an annual tradition, such as it is, especially this year. It's January 1st, 2021, which means, you know what this means? This date should look very familiar to you. It's time to look back on the year that was. That's right, the year 2020, and all of the hell that it produced. And a few good things as well that happened. What a year. Oh my God, I don't think anyone, this is one of the rare cases where we can say that 2020 was absolutely mean to everyone. Well, and it didn't take long to figure out why. The beginning of the year was normal, nobody knew that anything was about to go amiss. In fact, nobody would know anything until around the 12th of January when there were the first reports of some kind of pneumonia like virus was spreading across a little small area of China known as Wuhan, China. There's a meat market out there, and people were getting sick after going there. People weren't sure what was going on, but it was over there. It was a long way from the Western world. Nobody even really gave it two thoughts. And it was just, mentioned in passing on January 12th. Well, wouldn't take long before that mysterious illness suddenly became the talk of the entire world. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But probably the first big news event that happened in 2020 was in February with the attempt to kick Donald Trump out of office. They had already voted to impeach him. They'd actually done that late in 2019. And in early February, it might have even started in late January, the senators, there was I believe 100 senators were involved in this. Well, I think that's the entire Senate committee, actually. Anyway, they tried to impeach him, and it was the stupidest attempt at a trial I've ever seen. No witnesses were allowed to be called, none at all. How do you have a trial with no witnesses? Yeah, I was wondering how they were going to proceed, and well, they didn't. They had a couple of days of testimony from the people that were putting on what was the guy's name? Adam Schiff or whatever it was. I forget the names now of like the the people that put this all together. They testified because they couldn't call witnesses, so it was like the prosecution lawyer being the only one allowed to testify, and then the defense lawyer being the only one that can do rebuttal, and that was it. That's all you had. And then they went back and forth, and ultimately, of course, they did not kick him out of office. And I think had there been witnesses, though, they would have had a better chance.
So that's interesting. I'm his roommate, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's my roommate and occasional co-host of this video.
Trump wasn't even in the country. He was out in China.
Yes, he was out in China. They were doing some kind of trade signing deal thing at that point, which is very ironic that he was over in China when the next thing was about to happen a few weeks later, which I'm now going to get to because it pretty much dominates, and actually it dominated the year, and it continues to dominate events today, as I will get into. We started to hear about this in late January into February, where more and more people were starting to get sick with this weird virus. It wasn't just contained to China anymore. There was a couple of cruise ships that I remember, the Diamond Princess cruise ship, I believe, was one of them, where something like a few hundred passengers got sick, and they had to try to find a place to where they could dock because many countries didn't want the ship if they were sick. I mean, this thing escalated very quickly from a nuisance in China to
The whole world.
the whole world in what seemed like overnight. I mean, certainly within a couple of weeks. And by the time we got to March, that's when things went crazy. One moment, everybody's doing their thing. There are NBA games going on. There's, people are having school and all this. And then we start hearing, oh, we gotta shut everything down. I mean, like never before. Let's shut down the schools. Let's shut down the restaurants. Let's shut down the hotels. Everything.
I get phone calls on the land phone. This is the mayor of Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Yes.
We're
gonna be in a lockdown.
Yeah.
We don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. And it was weird. I mean, and at first I thought, okay, this is gonna be weird, but we're gonna get through it. A month or so of lockdown, maybe two, and we'll deal with it. In fact, there was some cool things that happened during that time to give people hope. There was a radio station in New York that did a really cool thing. Nobody could actually go to the Empire State Building, of course. And New York City became an epicenter of the pandemic early on.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic that would be known as COVID-19, or the coronavirus, as it became known. One of the radio stations out there in New York, Z100, did this thing for a couple of weeks, I think it was, where every night at 9 o'clock they would do a light show at the top of the Empire State Building to the tune of, the lights would sink into the music of Alicia Keys' Empire State of Mind. And I do have a couple of recordings of that. And it gave everybody hope when they needed it. I mean, people were not allowed to do anything. Broadway closed, all of the attractions just dark. Movie theater, you couldn't go to a movie. You couldn't do anything. And whether it was
Disney World, no Disney World.
Oh yeah, I feel bad for the people. Yeah, people, imagine being on vacation and right after you get on vacation being told, by the way, you got to leave in 3 days, and you're supposed to be there like 2 weeks. Oh, and no refunds for people that were trying to get baseball tickets to go to upcoming baseball games because the season was about to start. They had already started spring training, and the first that I knew anything was wrong was when I heard that NBA was shutting down. They were suspending their games, and I thought, well, this is pretty serious. And literally overnight, it went from, we're going to do, because there was the college basketball scene was going to try and do their games that weekend, the weekend that this all happened. And at first it was going to be, we'll do them, but without fans. Then it became, we're not doing them at all. And I'm like, oh God, this really is serious. And it was. I mean,
this way, my last trip to a grocery store, the store was packed. I thought it was Thanksgiving.
We thought, because it was, what was it, March 16th, I think was the last time we went to a grocery store?
Yeah.
Where we actually went there.
Yeah.
And it felt like Thanksgiving. And technically, we were already in the pandemic. March 11th was when the pandemic was declared worldwide. And people were advised, stay home. Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. And we went into that store to get some last minute stuff so we could lock down. And it felt like we were there on Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve. I couldn't believe how crowded it was. And this was before masks were widely available. This was even before masks were a thing. That wouldn't be a thing until I think May.
Yeah.
Actually, some areas required them in April, but I'll get to that. So we lock down, and I'm thinking, all right, we can deal with this. I'm listening to the Z100 tributes every night because it gave me hope that we'd get through this. I thought, oh, okay, this is going to work.
The temperatures were still cold.
Yeah, it was still kind of wintry. We weren't even into real spring yet, so I didn't mind. It was fine. We'll stay indoors. I got plenty to do. No big deal. So and the tributes that I watched every night, that I listened to for Z100, gave me hope even that we were gonna have a normal summer. We got plenty of time. It's only March at this point, so we got plenty of time. We're gonna get through this. They're gonna figure out what the hell's going on. We're gonna be fine. Well, then we start hearing as the lockdown continues, we start hearing about more and more things being canceled. First, it was the Boston Marathon. I remember, you might also, Celeste.
Oh yeah, we're going to be pushed back to September.
They were going to put, that was the original thought. Okay, no big deal. That should work. I mean, that gives them plenty of time. People can get back in training and practice over the summer, and then they're ready to go for the September reschedule. Well, within about, it probably was less than a month from that announcement, they decided we're not going to do it at all. The Boston Marathon has been canceled indefinitely.
And the Summer Olympics were canceled.
And the Summer Olympics were canceled. That's when I knew, all right, this is a bit more serious than, we're canceling things that have never been canceled before. The Summer Olympics, things like, there was for the blindness people like us that are totally blind, there was conventions that normally happen in late June, early July, and I thought, well, we're still going to have those conventions because, well, CSUN, which is a big convention that happens in March, they had their event, although
some people backed out of it.
A lot of people backed out of it. I think there was over 100 vendors that backed out. There were still some that showed up. It was still an in-person event, but I can only imagine the people that did go were very disappointed in what they got, which wasn't.
That's not a cheap convention to go to.
Right. I mean, it was.
You pay over $1,000.
Right. You pay over $1,000 between your food and your stay there. I mean, it's $500 just to register for the thing, as I understand it. But it is a big event. A lot of technology vendors usually go to this thing, and there was over 100 vendors that bowed out of it because the pandemic had just started. People were getting concerned for their employees. I mean, there was talk like, if you went out, it was like, you will get sick, you will die. That's what it felt like. But there was hope. I mean, months, But then, like I said, things were getting canceled. CSUN went on as scheduled, but that was probably the last in-person event. The Grammy Awards, and we lost early in the year, in late January of last year, we lost a great basketball player due to it was a helicopter crash.
Bryant,
Kobe Bryant was his name.
Kobe Bryant.
And he and his daughter. That's the sad part about that tragedy, is that his daughter.
They were taking
her to a basketball game that she was to play in, and their pilot, as it turned out, because I've seen reports on this, the pilot that he had chartered wasn't even qualified to fly in the kind of weather conditions that they were encountering, which was fog, and they smashed into a hillside near Malibu. They were literally probably 10 minutes from the destination. That's how close they were. So that was very tragic.
On Grammy night.
And then on Grammy night, which was
that day?
Yeah, it was that very day. I mean, how crazy is that? On Grammy night, Alicia Keys honored him, and she did like a little. I have it. I won't play it now because obviously I'm not in a position to do that, but we do have it. She did a little.
And due to copyright stuff on YouTube, we can't play it either.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, right. But she did do a little tribute to Kobe Bryant and did a little musical tribute to one of the songs that had just come out. It was really good, and it made me cry listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally right before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic happened, I started to realize, the Grammys was like the last big gathering that anybody got to do. So we had CSUN, and then nothing. We literally just did thank God for the internet. Zoom started to become a household name. Zoom, the video conferencing.
Zoom became the meeting room for the office, and it became the classroom for the students.
Yes, that's it, and it still remains that way to this day.
I have a 7-year-old nephew who's had to learn a lot more than I certainly knew as a 7-year-old.
Right, like how to use Zoom as a first grader. Like, holy cow! I don't even want to know. I've talked to parents that have had to teach their 5-year-olds how. They have to supervise them. There are parents that have had to, they can't go to their own jobs, so they. In fact, one of my friends lost their job because of this pandemic, and they had to, get their kid, help their kid with virtual schooling.
And another friend of ours is homeschooling her kid because of this.
Right. They decided that this is too much because they went through the end of the school year with public school and they decided this is ridiculous. If we have to stay home anyway, why don't we just homeschool our kid? And so that's what she's doing now. And so now keep in mind there was still hope at this point, but I started to lose hope as days turned into weeks, turned into months, and everything started to get canceled. The Boston Marathon, like I said before. Then, as time went on, the ACB convention got canceled. The 2020 Olympics got canceled, and I'm thinking this is pretty serious.
And of course, there's also local events.
Yeah, and then we started to hear about local events in the area where I'm currently at here in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Were going to get canceled. We first heard that the 4th of July parade was up in the air.
Yeah.
And this was in May, I believe. Or was it April?
Well, we heard this, I think, in April. It was actually by May.
Yeah, by May, it was like certain that there was not going to be a 4th of July parade. And we're like, all right, this is pretty bad when they're canceling events that are months away. Not days, not weeks, but months.
And events that have been going on for years. The 4th of July parade has been going on since like the 1800s.
Yeah, like the early 1800s. Wasn't it like 1810 or something like that?
Yeah, and then a lot of local events that haven't gone on nearly as long, but,
Third Thursday.
Third Thursday.
Third Thursday was an interesting one. We weren't quite sure. We knew the first one was going to be canceled. I think we even knew that June was going to be canceled.
Or May was going to be canceled.
No, May. That's what it was. April. Yeah, we knew May for sure was going to be canceled, but we thought, even as late as that, but in mid-April, we still thought, we might get a third Thursday in June. We might get, as the summer gets to, ramping up, we get closer to summer, we're going to start seeing events that we're looking forward to. Baseball season was not starting, because remember, they had to stop their spring training right smack in the middle of it. So there was no baseball season right then when there should have been. There was no sports of any kind. News broadcasts were
ending 15 minutes early.
Yeah, and they had no sport. I mean, there'd be no sportscast. They do their news stories, and okay, by the way, we'll see you next week, or not next week, but the next time. And that was weird.
And you could call, the sports packages you can order on your TV provider.
Right, and there was none.
Order one, and it'd be
there were no sports packages. And I remember when I did that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, normally extra innings would be there at that point. And there was nothing. Nothing at all. And, by now we're into, April, May. And I'm thinking, okay, this is enough. Enough's enough. By the middle of May, I started to realize, that hope we had at the beginning of this is dragging out a lot more and nothing's getting any better. Now by this point, masks are starting to become a thing. First it was, stay at home, don't go anywhere. Then it was, well, if you do want to go anywhere, you have to wear this mask. You have to put a mask on your face and cover your nose and mouth, and you have to, stay 6 feet apart. Oh, God, that is one phrase from 2020 that I never want to hear again. I know I'm going to because we're still in the middle of it, but my God, social distancing. Gee, who is anybody to tell me who I can shake? I can't hug anybody. I can't shake anybody's hand. What is this, China? I mean, I realize the virus started there, but this is getting ridiculous. So
think of it. I can't remember when I last hugged my mom.
Yeah, I mean, it's been over almost a year from now. I mean, you haven't hugged her since March.
Yeah.
Maybe you hugged her when we went to the store. I don't remember on that day. But that would have been the last time, I think, if you did.
Yeah, because even when I've seen her since then, she hasn't given me a hug.
Nope, and she hasn't wanted to. I mean, obviously she's trying to stay safe and for good reason. But getting back to the year in review, I'm realizing as we get to May that we're in this for the long haul. This is we're not going to get to the bottom of this, and it's not just going to come and go like some people thought. This is going to stick around, and nothing's getting any better. It's kind of sad, and now we have to wear these masks, and it's getting absolutely crazy. But we continued to persevere. I would continue to. I did my radio show until
July.
July, and during that time also, I ordered. I think it was during that time that I got we decided to get a bunch of movies.
We did that in late July.
That was in late July.
We did get one glimpse of hope. Space launch.
Oh yeah, the space launch. Yes, that was the first glimmer of hope we had in the year.
And you got to enjoy the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13, the
yes,
actual mission.
Yeah, in April they did on the website apolloinrealtime.org. They did the Apollo 13 mission in real time, as they did with the Apollo 11 mission back in 2019. They did Apollo 13 in real time, so you could follow the mission as it to the second, as it aired 50 years earlier as it happened. So that gave me something cool to do during the week of April 11th, while they were doing that. So the bedroom / studio became the mission control center while that was going on.
And then in late May.
It was late May. We did, I believe that was Demo 2, I think, or was it Demo 1? No, Demo 2. That's right, it was Demo 2. Demo 1 was the test flight, the non-crewed test flight, that's right. Demo 2 launched with astronauts Bob and Doug, the astronaut dads, we called them, because they were both fathers. Their sons both watched their launches, and this was the first launch of astronauts from an American launch pad since the retirement of the space shuttle in 2011. So that was a pretty significant moment. That launch actually took 2 tries to get off the ground. It was originally going to launch on May 27th. It did not launch until May 30th. I believe, yeah, May 30th. Because I did a live broadcast on my private server. I was originally going to do it on my show that I was doing at the time, on 98.6 The Mix, but it was scrubbed that day due to weather, I do believe.
Yeah, weather.
So, but the listeners of my show got the scrub launch, and then listeners to my private show on Saturday got the full launch. Mm-hmm. And that was exciting. I watched the entire coverage of them going to the space station. That was their test flight to certify the spacecraft could be used for crewed missions. In fact, there would be a crewed mission later on in the year called Crew 1 in, what was that? Back in November? Yeah, I think that was in November. They did.
Back in August.
The demo crew came back in August.
And then there was the one with 4 people on it in November.
Yeah, and those guys are still up there. That was called Crew 1, and that would happen in November. So that was we've launched 2 sets of astronauts now to the space station. The first time that Americans have launched anywhere from the U.S. since in 9 years. So that was an exciting moment. One of only a handful of exciting moments that would happen in 2020. I would say, during the year, we got to use DoorDash a lot. DoorDash has been a godsend.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, most of these places we couldn't usually get to on our own anyway. And secondly, it was all chaos.
Yeah, all of it was. You couldn't dine in anywhere. Not out here, not in much of the country. Later in the summer, it would become possible to dine out in some places.
If they had outdoor dining.
If they had outdoor dining, you could do it, and in some states, because all the restrictions were based on, per state. Each state could have their own guidelines. And Nevada did allow limited capacity indoor dining, and I'll talk later about how I know this.
This way, we did a total, actually, between the 2 of us. I did 34 orders, you did 8.
I did 8, so that'd be 42 orders of DoorDash between the 2 of us.
And with another 12 restaurants.
Right. 7, and then I think I did 4 in total.
No, 5.
5, that's right. So yeah, 12 restaurants. So DoorDash was a lifesaver, and we're grateful for them. So if anybody from DoorDash is watching this, thank you, and continue to do what you do. It's awesome. And just whether there was a pandemic or not, DoorDash is just cool in general, because being able to get stuff delivered from places like McDonald's that wouldn't normally do delivery
or from places that aren't in walking distance.
Right. It makes it really nice. Yeah, like if I wanted to order from Arizona Pizza, maybe one time I'll try that. But anyway, so now
I'm glad to do it because one of my favorite places is gone now.
Right. Yeah, one of her favorite Asian places closed at the end of 2020. That's kind of a sad moment for her. And she discusses that on her year in review. And if you want to catch that, you got to have her on Facebook. So now we get to, so nothing was going to happen The most exciting thing that happened on the street that my roommate and I reside on was during the first weeks of the pandemic. During one of the weeks, there was a guy that played the saxophone. I think it was right outside the building here, and that's the closest I ever came to seeing the street below us actually have any kind of activity on it.
After President's Day weekend.
We had the mystery fireworks. I don't remember if I've discussed that in previous year in reviews, but for the last 2 years that I've been here during the winter, there have been fireworks that have gone off in late February on the weekend after President's Day. We don't know where they come from. We still don't know where they come from, but chances are we're not going to hear them this year, as the pandemic, of course, is still the big story.
And then in place of the 4th of July parade, we got a retrospective.
Yeah, in place of the 4th of July parade, we watched a parade retrospective on Pittsfield Community Television where they went through and looked at past parades and what they did and the history of how long the parade's been going on, and it was pretty neat. But I gotta admit, it was weird when we were hoping to see.
And we heard mainly
traffic. Yeah, there shouldn't have been traffic that day on during that time.
In fact,
on North Street.
Probably thought a parade was going on because it was very quiet.
It was quiet. There was occasional cars. The cars that were on the street were traveling very slowly, almost as if there were supposed to be a parade there. It was kind of interesting. So, but again, no crowds of any kind.
This way, by mid-June, we were so fed up we did a COVID rant show.
Yes.
We played a bunch of. We were also thankful to have parodies.
Oh yeah, the parodies cheered me up. There was a bunch of parodies that we found that people had done, like My Corona instead of My Sharona, or
a group called the
Holderness Family which is a channel here on YouTube that you can find them. Holdernass, I believe, is their how you spell that. The Holderness Family. Look them up. They have done quite a few parodies. And even some non-Holderness Family parodies we found over a few weeks. And we put them all together in a little, what was that thing, about 4 hours that we did our COVID show?
Yeah.
And that kind of helped us kind of vent off some steam in, I guess that was late. Well, we did it on, what would have been third Thursday in May.
No, in June.
No, it was in June. That's right, in June.
Thursday in June.
That's right, because we're like, well, if we can't have third Thursday, we can at least rant about why. And we'll do it on third Thursday. We purposely did it on third Thursday for that reason. So we did that. We got through that. July was, I think, relatively quiet. We in late July.
We ordered our movies.
In late July we ordered our movies. We ended up ordering 12 movies in all.
Yep.
And some classics and some.
And I enjoyed Christmas in July.
Yeah,
I watched a Christmas episode of a different show every day.
Yep, she did a Christmas show every day.
July on my show on 98.6 MX every week.
Yep, and of course I contributed to requests on that show because it was neat to have some holiday cheer, and even the Holderness Family had done a Christmas COVID parody, which was kind of cute.
And by the end of July, you finally got your baseball.
Yes. The baseball season, they finally decided to have one after bickering back and forth for literally what seemed like forever. In fact, it was to the point where I thought there wouldn't be a baseball season. Then I got word in the middle of July that, yep, we're going to have one. It's going to be a shortened 60-game season. Normally it's 162 games. And we're going to start it on July 23rd, which is basically right around the time that the All-Star game would have happened. And the All-Star game, had it happened, ironically, would have been at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. So had I been out west in my home area, I probably could have gone to the All-Star game. But there was no All-Star game because the beginning of baseball season started on July 23rd. So I got my extra innings.
Game, it was the start. They skipped bye-bye All-Star game.
Right.
Have the World Series instead.
Right, and so we did the baseball season started. We got our movies, and then in the beginning of August, I decided to upgrade my phone, my Verizon phone, and we waited all day for that package. Because of the way this building is, none of the carriers like FedEx and UPS, they don't have keys into this building. So if you want to get a package here, and it's being shipped that way, you have to go outside and wait for it, or you're going to miss it. Unless they get lucky and a neighbor happens to be going in the building at the exact moment that the courier gets here. So both of us went outside on, I believe it was August 7th. Because I think that was it for July.
Yeah, in July we
pretty much was a quiet month of the. So yeah, August 7th, we're out there. It was a very nice day. It was in the 80s that day. In fact, I think we got into the upper 80s. But because the package did not arrive until late in the day, we paid dearly for our waiting outside. We had a sunburn, the likes of which I hadn't had since I went to the LA County Air Show in 2016. Yeah, not even in 18 did I have that problem. In 2016, I had a nice sunburn.
Put it this way, folks. My sunburns were so bad, listeners of my show were dedicating songs to it.
Uh-huh.
Like, don't put your records in the sun.
Right. Yep. And Celeste's mom was wondering, we went and got groceries from her as we've been doing since the start of the pandemic.
She brings them, we go down, collect them, we bring them up, and we use this lovely little service called Ira to help us put away
the groceries and identify what's what and all that. And she goes, and your mom, I remember we went down to pick up the groceries after our sunburn, and she goes, "What happened to y'all?" And I knew what she meant. I think you did too.
Yeah.
You knew what she meant by asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
We told her what happened, and of course, we could have sent the packages to her place. In fact, she wondered why we didn't. But we're like, well, we wanted to kind of get it ourselves, and we did. We explained it. But
we were grateful that one of the people at the hair salon place brought us
chairs. Yeah,
chairs. And
a soda.
Some sodas from Liberty Pizza.
That was awesome. I'm glad they did. They didn't have to do that, but that was very nice of them to do that. They were very caring, and it made our time outside that day be a little more manageable. So we got my package, and I instantly went to work setting it up, and I've been loving it ever since. In fact, I'm doing this review on that very phone right now, and it's been a very good little device. So I was able to retire my iPhone 8 Plus that had been on Verizon. In fact, it now sits in a box under the bed, and we occasionally turn it on to see how much battery power is left in it because it hasn't been charged since August. So it's been kind of amusing.
It's amazing how about every month it loses about 10%.
Yep. So in fact, next month it should be into the 20% range. I see it now. We turn it on, we get a 20% alert warning. Yeah. So that was August, I think. Is there anything else in August that is worth mentioning?
Splashdown of the...
Oh, yeah, the splashdown, yeah. The splashdown happened. In fact, that was on the 2nd of August, actually. Okay. That's when the demo... That's when Bob and Doug came back, and we were very grateful. The spacecraft did its job. They had spent a few months on the space station. The one spot, by the way, where they wouldn't have to worry about social distancing or masks. So even now, I'm pretty sure that's the case up there. So I feel very jealous for the folks that are on the space station. It's the one place where they can actually have a bit of normalcy, such as it is on the ISS. So that was August, basically. And August would have normally had an event called Film Night, which, of course, we knew back in June or May even that
wasn't going to happen.
That wasn't going to happen. One of our friends told us that, actually.
One of my friends who also lost a job.
Right.
Another friend of mine didn't have a job for a while, and now she only goes one day a week.
Right. So this has been really hard. Oh, and in May, way back in May, we did get our stimulus checks. Round one, which was the bigger of the two.
And I was able to buy a laptop later.
Yep, you were able to do that. In fact, you did that while I was gone, actually.
Yep, and you paid off a credit card.
And I paid off a credit card thanks to doing that, so that worked out really well. And so now we're into... by this point, I've had my phone, I've set it up. Nothing much else is going on. The weather continues to be nice. Sunburns have gone away, and I'm starting to think, I need to do something. I need to enjoy my summer. Somehow, I've got to get, I've been thinking about this, I think, throughout the month of August. Mm-hmm. I'm like, we're not going to do anything. There have been so many things I wanted to do in 2020. I wanted to go to Canada. I wanted to go to a baseball. I had all these plans. I was going to go to Tanglewood, film night, all the things. None of it was going to happen. So I started to think, well, what can I do? Because since the pandemic started, here we are in mid to late August, and I hadn't gone beyond the corner of, Liberty Pizza was as far as I ever went. And that's, for those that don't know, that's literally right downstairs and 3 doors down from where I am. So that's as far as I went. And even then, I think I only did it once. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, I got to get out of town. I got to, they can't prevent me from traveling. By this point, I had masks. We both had masks.
Yeah.
So I could actually, I mean, that was the only requirement I needed for travel.
And we did go have one meal together at my parents. We had some steak.
We had some steak, yeah. Was that in July or August?
That was either, I think it was either August or early September. Right,
Oh, that might have been early September. That's right, because I think it was
right before you
not long before what I'm about to talk about. So I started to think, well, what can I do? Because I know the weather in my home area was also obviously nice. So I'm thinking, well, why don't I go see my friends? It'll be the one thing that I can do where I can look back at this year and at least, it won't be all about the pandemic. So, oh, but hear that? If you hear that in the background, that's a snowplow. You know what that means. We have a storm going on outside.
Yep.
So anyways, good thing we're in here. So I finally made the decision, probably sometime around Labor Day, that I was going to go on a trip. And I'm going to, I had no time limit. And I said, all right, we're going to do this thing. And you were probably disappointed. Or were you? Were you looking forward to me leaving for a bit so you'd have some alone time? Or were you just more...
I was a little disappointed. I wasn't sure what to think. Because I was disappointed because you'd been here, this long. And I guess I was also a little concerned because I'm kind of... I was trying to decide what side to take. Because on one hand, I agree with you. And on others, I agree with the people who say, oh, stay safe, stay home kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's like, is he going to be okay?
Right, and even and I could see the concern there. In fact, you even expressed it to me a little bit, and I'm like, I think I'll be fine. I mean, I had yet to hear of anybody getting sick on an Amtrak train, which is how I was going to make this trip, and I knew it was going to be different because the way you booked the ticket, you had to book your stuff in advance, and the trains sold out quicker.
And even if you call Amtrak, they even say
you must wear a mask. Yes. And if you need information on how to get one, here's where to go. And we reserve, and they still do this message today. We reserve the right to ban future travel. Yeah, we reserve the right to ban future travel on Amtrak for failure to comply. So I'm like, all right. Fortunately, Celeste's mom had brought some masks over
back in May.
Back in May, she brought us some masks.
She got us another pack of them later on, I think.
Yes, and we still have some, I think, left from that pack that we can use for the future, which is good because I'll probably steal some the next time I go on a trip. So I was all ready to go. I had a mask. In fact, I had a whole set of them, which would come in handy during my trip. So I left on, ironically, September 11th. I had done right before leaving, I had done a pre-recorded September 11th tribute show for Flashback Friday, which I thought was really good. What a way to kind of, the last thing I do here before leaving later in the day.
This was since there'd be no more Flashback Friday by the time you got back.
Right. Well, I didn't know that at the time. And I left. The trip was awesome. I mean, the trip out, it was different. The train was so much quieter than I ever remember it. My first stop was my usual, I went out to Lancaster, California. My home, where I've grown up and where I still know a few people out there. And I stayed out there for a few days, met with such people as my friend Dana, and got to have Carl's Jr. at 3:30 in the morning, which I forgot that I could do that out there. You certainly couldn't do that out here. You can't do anything food. You can't go out for food at 3 in the morning out here. So that reminded me of how awesome it was going to be.
I heard about it and I was surprised.
Right.
Everything was open.
I sent her a recording of me.
I mean, the only place I know of restaurants being open that late is New York City, okay?
Right. New York, maybe Las Vegas, places
even
like
Los Angeles.
Yeah, even LA would have places open
Lancaster,
like that.
I mean, the fact that I didn't even know about Lancaster till I met you.
Right.
Right.
It's just smaller. It's a desert community. It's got maybe I don't know, 150,000 people in it, something like that. It's not like, it's bigger than where I'm at now, but it's not as big as LA or even, Santa Clarita where the Magic Mountain Six Flags Park is. But it's, so I got to do that. I got to, I hung out there for, I think, 4 days.
About a week.
Yeah, about a week I was out there. Then I moved on to my next destination, which was up in Bakersfield, where I have family out there and friends, which was the bulk of my visit in California. And even that was different. I was actually in town during the time that normally the Kern County Fair would have been going on. I didn't realize it at the time, but when I realized what date I found myself in Bakersfield, I was like, oh wow, if there were actually a fair going on, I would have been in town for it, and I likely would have gone. Well,
there was no fair.
There was no fair. Now they did have, and I didn't do this, but I could have, they did have like a drive-through thing where you could go to the fairgrounds and pick up fair food. But I thought...
But that wasn't going to be nearly as much fun.
Right. I was like, if that's all I can do, that's kind of... You want to go to the fair, you want to stick around a little bit.
Well, not only that, you can't really look out the window and see the stuff.
Right. So you wouldn't know what to get. I mean, I thought about doing it. I could have taken an Uber, but that would have just been weird.
And that would have felt weird to the driver, too.
Yeah, it's like, I'm only going to help this guy get fair food? Okay, but that's weird. Yeah, that would have been a weird Uber trip, so I never ended up doing that. But that was the closest that they got to having their fair this year, or last year. So I didn't do that, but I did enjoy hanging out with my sister, who behaved herself, which I'm very proud of.
She even made appearances on my radio show.
Yes, she did. That was really cool. And we had a good time hanging out with all my friends in Bakersfield, and I was there for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That flew by. And then my friend Robert, actually, we delayed this for a week because of his work because of his schedule. We went up. The
only train was at O'Dark.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. The train schedules had been modified. It used to be, if I wanted to go to Reno, it was a very easy trip from Bakersfield direct to Sacramento, and then on to Reno, and I could leave at like 5:30 in the morning from Bakersfield, and I would get up to Reno like 4 in the afternoon. Well, because of the pandemic, Amtrak made all kinds of changes, and they actually took away the direct route between Bakersfield and Sacramento. So if you wanted to go that way, you had to do transfers, and the whole schedule had been screwed up. The only train I could take to leave Bakersfield and go to Reno, there was only one instead of the 2 or 3 there used to be. And it left at like 3:30. Well, I had to leave at 3:30 a.m. I think the train left at like 4. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's not going to be feasible, especially I was worried that I wouldn't get an Uber certainly because of the pandemic. You know, it might be before the pandemic, I might have had a chance. But one driver might have been around. But I figured, well, at that hour, with the pandemic going on, a lot of drivers aren't going to want to be out, as had already been shown to be the case. So I might not be able to get out. And my friends that I have that could drive, they might not be awake at that hour. So I talked to my friend and I said, hey, how'd you feel about coming down? Actually, he came up with the idea. You know, he'd rent a car and come down and pick me up. And I said, sure, we can do that. And so we were going to do it the weekend before we actually did. And then we decided, because of the train schedule, because I was originally just going to go up and meet him, and then we were going to do other things, like go to mountains and stuff. But we decided to hold off on that and delay it a week, so that on October 2nd, or whatever that's...
It was October 2nd.
Yeah, October 2nd was when...
The last show I did live.
Right.
When you left.
When I left for Reno, Robert came down. I
fell asleep to the end of my show.
Oh, yes, that was it. We stayed the night in Bakersfield, because, Robert had a long trip down, because he left right after... He had been working that day, and he
left and drove right after work.
Right. So he had a long drive, 7-hour trip down to Bakersfield. So we stayed at, actually we did not stay at the Motel 6.
Embassy.
Right. I think it was Embassy, right nearby, on the same street, just further down. And then the next day we were off. We went back to Reno, and I would end up hanging out there with Robert and his daughter and two sons for about 3 weeks. And a friend of theirs that was hanging out up there. And I would end up hanging there for about 3 weeks.
Thanks to the train schedule being goofy.
Yeah, toward the middle of October, the train schedule would change dramatically, to the point where long distance trains that were daily were now only 3 times a week, which is how they are today. And getting a seat on one of those trains would become even harder. I'm used to planning, reserving a train ticket a day or two out, usually. I would try that, and
It would be sold out.
it'd be sold out.
I finally knuckled him down and said, I bought his laptop.
Right.
Because it runs faster than my desktop.
Yep.
Just so he could, for one, have enough money to eat.
Right, because I was eating out a lot.
And secondly, have enough money to get back here and buy his ticket. Because at this point, I'm like, because it's getting toward late October. I don't know what the weather's going to
do. Right, the weather had been nice the whole time. But of course, we knew it could change any time, so.
And he was in a very tiny spot at this, at the tiny alcove.
What we call the tiny alcove, Robert's little mobile, trailer thing. So I enjoyed myself.
He got stranded there in a winter and where he was, they do get winter.
They do get winter over there. So we're like, okay, we'll get the, So I got the money from the laptop purchase, and some of it went toward the train ticket, which
we bought a week out.
Because
at this point, if we wait any longer, it's going to be sold out.
It's going to be sold out again. So we finally settled on October 24th for the departure date, and I continued to have fun at the tiny alcove for the next week. And the final 2 nights of my stay in Reno.
You also got some purchases too.
Oh yes, we got this. I got a GD77, which is a ham radio that does a digital mode called DMR. I got that. Thanks to Robert showing me this, I got a portable battery pack charger for my phone. It's one of those. It's a battery pack that you plug into your phone, and the battery pack charges your phone battery. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a neat concept. It's been around for many years, and I'd been meaning to get one. And I figured, well, gee, while I'm on vacation doing this, why don't I make these purchases? And so what happened was Robert made the purchases because he had Prime. Mm-hmm. Robert had Prime, and well, obviously I don't. So he made the purchases, and I paid him back. Is how that worked. And I bought the battery, I bought the radio.
And didn't you buy from him a Raspberry
And
Pi?
I bought a Raspberry Pi from him as well, which does the DMR network, so I can do the, talk on DMR online. So I can talk to people outside of the local area, so I can do more because nobody here has DMR. So I bought all that stuff. I bought what they call a Zoom spot, and I paid $100 for that. So that happened, and it was very smooth. I had a great time, and overall, it was 6 weeks from the time I left here to the time I returned, and then the weather stayed beautiful. Remember, it was hard to get me to come back. Remember, I was having such a good time. I didn't want to, because it was the only bit of normalcy I had in 2020, really. It was nice to see my friends. It was nice to not have to think about the pandemic every day. I mean, yeah, I had to wear my mask when I went places, but I kind of got used to that. I'd go to the restaurant. Oh, we're going to go out to eat. Okay, and it felt weird, by the way, dining out. Because in Nevada, remember I said I was going to get to this. During my time in Nevada, I actually got to dine in. Actually eat out, sit at a table at a restaurant and enjoy a restaurant. But that was kind of eerie because there were fewer people there because you're limited to, I think, 25% capacity. And it was just odd. And I'll tell you what was really odd. On the way up to Reno, we stopped off at an electronics store that I'd been to before called Fry's Electronics. I'd been to one of their other locations. And I went in there, and I just was kind of browsing. I was thinking about getting a hard drive, a physical hard drive while I was there. I went in there, because I remember them having hard drives before, and first of all, the place was almost deserted. There might have been like one other employee in there, okay? It was deserted. I had never seen a place like that. Very big place, kind of like a Best Buy. But you walk through there was nothing. And then I asked, where are your hard drives? And they go, we don't have any. I'm like, wait a minute. This is an electronics store and you don't have hard drives? They're like, no, but we have gaming computers if you want one. I'm like, that's not what I came here for. I literally went in there and was out of there in 5 minutes. It was the shortest trip ever into and out of a store. So that was weird.
I mean, you almost have better luck getting hard drives on Amazon.
Well, yeah, you would, as it turned out. But that I thought that maybe
you'd have a chance.
that I'd have a chance, because I could have done it, but it wasn't to be. Again, that's a reminder that the pandemic had taken over everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't totally escape the pandemic, but I kind of mostly got away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting to eat at a restaurant, getting to see my friends, getting to do all that, it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so that happened. That was basically the highlight of the year for me, personal highlight, that I finally got to do something that had nothing to do with the pandemic and enjoy myself and hang out with friends.
And meanwhile, I, did stuff that he wasn't interested in.
Right.
Because it was around that time of year in my family.
Exactly. You had birthdays and things that you did. You did a couple of things. And so I came back on the 24th, and my train.
Here on the 27th.
And I got back here on the 27th, and that was uneventful. I mean, we had our traditional. We often, when I do trips like that, we have Liberty Pizza when I get back. And
didn't you take a different line back?
Yes. I took on the way. Normally, I would take the Southwest Chief because I'm coming from L.A., Southern California. This time, because I was coming from Reno, I got to take the California Zephyr, which is a cool train route because it goes through some pretty unique territory. One of the things it does is it goes, and pardon the clanging, that's actually our heater doing its job. It's actually keeping the room nice and warm. So one of the things the California Zephyr does is it goes through the heart of Colorado, I would call it, the heart of the Rockies, and it goes through it goes to Denver, but to get to Denver, you go through Grand Junction, Colorado, and then you go, because from Reno you go through the rest of Nevada, out in the desert, up through Utah, and then up into Colorado, and you go through Grand Junction, and then you go through this tunnel. You actually go through about 30 tunnels, but they're all small. And then there's this big, it's called the Moffett Tunnel. It was built in 18 something or other, back during the Continental Railroad building. And this tunnel is really cool. It goes up, the height of it is amazing. It goes up to about 9,300 feet, I think, in the end. And it's like 6 miles long, and the train has to go very slowly through it.
They even advise you not to get out of your seat.
Yeah, they tell you before you go into it, they say, all right, we're about to go through the Moffett Tunnel. They tell you a little bit about it, and they say, do not move between the cars until we are through the tunnel. And I thought that was amazing. I was kind of fascinated by it. And sure enough, we went through the tunnel. It got nice and dark, and it got very quiet as people were kind of admiring the view outside. Now, the view outside was interesting on this trip because check this out. It was actually snowing. Okay, remember when I'm coming back. It's late October. This was the evening of the late afternoon of the 25th of October. Mm-hmm. It's snowing. You'd never know it if you're blind, and obviously looking out the window you would know. But of course I couldn't do that. I was sitting next to a window. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know it was snowing out there until one of the passengers told me. It's like, yeah, it's a blizzard out there. I'm like, holy cow. But still, we made it through. We're at 9,000 feet. You can imagine how much snow we were encountering up there. Mm-hmm. So we were traveling nice and slow, and I'm looking at my GPS going, wow, we're high. We kept getting higher and higher and higher. Yep, on the GPS, I saw 9,127, but then I lost it because remember, we went through the tunnel, the heart of it. You don't get any signals in the tunnel. Oh, wow. So I actually learned later that the peak of the tunnel is actually 9,300 feet. So we were at that altitude, and the train went through it. We went down the other side. Eventually, we would end up at Denver, and there would be actually an interesting event that would happen with one of the passengers on that at Denver. They lost their phone. They lost their phone, and basically I had to break the bad news to them the next morning, because they were going to Missouri, and basically their phone was stolen on the train. They let someone borrow it. I did what I could to help them out. So I kind of did a good deed in that sense. I couldn't get their phone back, but I did talk to the idiot that stole it for what good that did. It confirmed our worst fears. But in Denver, let me tell you what happened in Denver. I was able to look at the weather in Denver. I almost was going to step outside just because of how cold it was. The temperature in Denver. Now keep in mind, when I left Reno, it was in the 50s, I believe. Yep. Maybe even low 60s. But in Denver, it was 10 degrees 10 degrees, and that blizzard I was talking about was still going on in Denver. So I didn't step off the train after all. Had it not been snowing, I might have, just because, holy crap, I probably would have done a video.
10 degrees in October.
10 degrees in October.
And even where I am, I was looking at the thing. I was eating dinner when he showed me this. It was like in the 40s here.
Yep, it was in the 40s here, and I remember sending you a message.
We've seen 10 degrees where we are, but not in October.
Not in October. I mean, that's what blew my mind. I was like, oh my God. So we did that. I got through that. That was, that was one of the highlights of that part of the train trip, because that was on the California Zephyr. And so we got to Chicago. We actually, was that on the Zephyr? Yeah, that was on the Zephyr. We ended up being 4 hours late into Chicago because we had a broken rail. We had a broken rail on the Nebraska-Iowa border. I think we were on the Iowa side,
yeah.
But we were there for 4 hours while they fixed it. So that was a bit of an adventure. After we had obviously done the Denver thing the night before, and so we got through there, and the rest of the trip was kind of uneventful. And
I got to the speedy part.
I got to this, yeah. Once I changed lines and was on Lakeshore Limited, I got to see something I never noticed before because I never looked. This part of the train I had been on before, of course, taking other trips to and from this area, but I was actually looking because we were coming up on Albany. We weren't there yet, but we were in Schenectady, coming up on Schenectady.
Yep.
And it felt to me like we were going faster than I had remembered ever going. And I'm like, let me take a look at my speed. Just, curious. I'm like, maybe I'm just feeling things. Because it felt faster, but how sometimes you can feel faster and you're really going the same speed. You're just on a curve or whatever.
Right.
That's what I thought was going on, but I'll double check. So I bring up my app that I use for looking at such things, my GPS app, and it shows that I'm going 95 miles an hour, and the speed is climbing. I see 97, 99, 102, 104, and then we start slowing down because we're coming into Schenectady. So I'm like, oh my God, 104 miles an hour? What the hell did we just do? So in other words, my senses didn't deceive me. We were going faster than I had ever seen an Amtrak train go. The fastest I'd ever seen an Amtrak train go to that point was 90 miles an hour on the Pacific Surfliner going through Camp Pendleton as you approach San Diego. There's a Marine base you go through in North San Diego County on the way down going towards San Diego. When you're there, you go about 90, 92 miles an hour. That's the fastest I had ever seen an Amtrak train go, and most of the time I've seen an Amtrak train go at about 80 miles an hour. There's parts of the open San Joaquin Valley when you're going on that line that you do that, but I'd never seen 104. So we do the stop in Schenectady, and as we get going again, it feels like we're picking up speed again. I'm like, oh boy. So now I'm curious. I'm looking at the GPS app again. Now we're going, it's 20 minutes to Albany from there. I'm like, well, no wonder. I'm looking at the speed again. 104, 108, 110. 110 was the peak. And we held there for, God, it had to be a couple of minutes. Put it this way, when we slowed down, I could smell the brakes when we would slow down from about 110 down to like 50. It felt like we were crawling at that point, and you could smell the brakes because, they'd applied them, and you could actually, it was wild. I'm like, oh my, we really were going that fast. And then we came into Albany, and that's the last time I remember going 100 plus miles an hour. So that was pretty exciting. It makes me look forward to the next time I take a trip to see, obviously I'll pick a day when the weather's nice, like I usually do, because I might get to see that again. I've always known that there's a part of the route between New York and Boston where I've read that you that Amtrak goes that fast. I've got a funny feeling that I just experienced a portion of that.
Yeah, and it was during the day, too.
And it was, yeah, they probably wouldn't do that.
Because remember, if you're leaving from here, you're going at night.
Oh,
you
right.
Probably won't.
Probably
You have to be coming back. Now you have an incentive to come back this direction.
Right.
Maybe I won't have to buy your clothes.
Oh, right.
Because I bought your laptop.
Oh, right. So I'll have to go. Right.
Before you know that, every time you go on a trip, I buy something else until you have no stuff left.
Right. So anyway, so that was pretty exciting. So I get back here, everything's good. We get to watch the World Series. The World Series actually happens. In fact, part of the World Series I watched while I was still in Reno.
Well, what, the first couple of games?
Yep.
Some of them you missed because of the train.
Because of the train. And
I think you saw the last game.
I did see the last game here, and I got to see one of them while I was at the Nuggets. So most of the games I watched on YouTube TV, because there was no TV in Reno. No actual TV.
Right.
So I watched it on my YouTube TV subscription that I have, thanks to Celeste here. And then I watched the last game here.
On the big TV.
On our version of a big TV. And that was the end of baseball season. And we get to November and election night.
Our coldest night.
Yes, our coldest night in this building. And that was an interesting night. It was very cold. It dipped into the 50s indoors. Curled up under the blanket, trying to stay warm and following election results. It looked early on like Joe Biden would win, but it was too early to call on election night. It would be, I think wasn't it about
4 days later?
Yeah, it was like 4 days later when we finally got the official word.
And while we waited, you got sick.
Yes, I had a little bit of something. I don't think it was COVID. Because
you had headache, chills, and fever. Put it this way, we got heat back next day and you were freezing. I'm like,
right. We knew something was up, but we figured maybe it's something. But then I lost energy. And I knew something wasn't right. But I'd been back for 8 days at that point. So if I did pick something up on the train, it was not COVID, though. Because although I had a fever, I always could breathe and I always could eat, even if I ate slower because of my lack of appetite. And that lasted, 2 days, I guess?
2 days. You started to feel better the day we finally got the results in.
Right. In fact, we celebrated by getting Taco Bell, and I slowly ate it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't quite feeling all the way better, but I was feeling enough that I was like 95% at that point, I think.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed. Joe Biden gave his victory speech that night, which was very inspiring. And
this way, I have more faith in him
than our current president. Yeah. Oh my God. I think we're going to see a lot of changes here in just a couple of weeks. Once Joe Biden takes office in about 19 days.
Yeah.
And I'll be watching that coverage coming up. And so that was I think one of the big highlights in November. Of course, we had Thanksgiving.
You got to enjoy it with my parents.
Well, I got to meet a friend of Celeste's brothers who she was his room, or no, just his neighbor, right?
Yeah, his neighbor.
Yeah, just his neighbor before he moved to where he's at now. Got to meet her. She's really nice. I hope she gets her driver's license back soon because I found out that she used to have one but currently doesn't for personal reasons, but she's working on that. So who knows? That could be interesting. And Thanksgiving, it mostly went off without a hitch. I had a little bit of a debate with the family that about COVID and my thoughts, and nearly got thrown out of the house, but I think I averted that.
Yep, you did.
But Thanksgiving dinner was good. We had our usual turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and broccoli, and they had other stuff that they have that I don't eat. And it was good. Am I missing anything? Is that November in a nutshell? I think it is.
Pretty much November. I don't think there's anything else. But then we get to December.
Yep, December was.
I actually had a birthday celebration minus the movie theater.
Yeah, no, this was different.
From Pizza Place.
Yeah, we did something a little different for celebrating my roommate's birthday this year. In previous years, we'd gone to movie theaters and saw various movies. This year, though, there was going to be no movie theater, as there hasn't been movie theaters since March. So we saw the movie Onward on DVD, which was a movie that you probably would have seen in the theater had it actually aired or been seen in the theater, because it came out, I think, right after the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So your parents had it on DVD, so we watched it, with her friend Crystal and myself, and
So thanks to the pandemic, my friend Carrie couldn't come.
right, her friend Carrie, who usually also comes to these things, couldn't make it, but the rest of us did, and we had a good time. We were socially distant. Your mom made sure of that. The room was big enough. It was almost like being in a movie theater.
Yep.
But we each had a chair. I think maybe your friend Crystal was on the sofa, or was she in a chair? I'm trying to remember. I was in a chair.
She was on the sofa.
She was on the sofa. You
I
were
was in another chair.
Right. So we had enough chairs in there. Everybody could. Yeah. We had our food. We had our pizza. We had to get the pizza as a carryout instead of eating. We normally would eat at a pizza place.
Well, this time we ate it while we watched the movie, which.
Yeah,
I will say that was a bonus, because usually we'll go see the movie and then go to eat.
And then eat. Yeah, normally you eat your popcorn or whatever at the movie theater. Well, we couldn't do that, so this was the next best thing we could do. But that worked out, so we got to enjoy our pizza from Arizona Pizza, yep, over in the next city over in Lenox. So we did that. We had, and then you got your presents. I had gotten you Swan Princess on DVD. And you got all your other presents, and the birthday celebration basically went off without a hitch. We took everybody back home, and
we had a celebration ourselves on my birthday. We got Panera Bread with DoorDash.
Yep, that was yummy. Panera Bread. I got their half.
The
beef and steak sandwich, cheddar and steak, I think it was that sandwich. Yeah. And because you get half sandwiches,
you got 2 halves.
I got 2 halves of the same sandwich because I liked it so much, and it proved to be very tasty and yummy. And, well, then we get to Christmas Eve, I think is the last thing to talk about.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
Yep, Christmas Eve was very... we had been building throughout, I would say, what would you say, from Thanksgiving onward, we had been building a Christmas playlist on our on your Amazon devices.
And I did a Christmas show.
And you did a Christmas show on our private server 102, which is a server that I actually manage. That
a few days before Christmas.
Yep. And you did that, and that was a 12-hour show. That was a really good show. Mm-hmm. Pretty much all the cool Christmas songs, including all the ones we added this year. We added quite a bit this year.
Including Christmas albums.
That you didn't even know existed, thanks to
Timothy,
one of her friends. And I had added some stuff thanks to a stream that I had listened to a little bit last year, but I really got into it this year. It was called Christmus, CHRISTMUS. It was a separate stream that was put on by one of the TBRN staff members. TBRN is the Beyond Radio Network.
And by the way, it was the only thing that you were interested in, because Magic 109 went poof.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, Magic 109. Oh, boy. Magic 109. I have to talk about that for a minute. I had a lot of friends that broadcasted on Magic 109, which was an internet station that lasted for just a hair over a year. Because one day it was there, and everything was fine. The schedule, everything was great. Most people were doing their shows, and then poof, literally, it was gone. Like, what? Like, literally, even broadcasters that in fact, that's how I knew it was gone. I was talking to one of the broadcasters, and they had put out their show promo, and they actually called me on the phone to say, you know that show promo I put out for tomorrow? Ignore it. I'm like, why? Did you have a hardware failure? No, the station just shut down without warning. I'm like, what? I didn't believe it. I actually had to go see for myself. Sure enough, website was gone. The Twitter was still there, but the last tweet was, thanks for listening, and the tweet before that was, check out this guy's country show later today. Like, there was no warning. Like, nobody had any warning of this. Like, to this day, I'm still wondering what happened. Like, the full story. I've gotten bits and pieces of it. But let's just say when I go, because my next trip that I'm going to take when the weather warms up is probably going to be to visit a friend of mine, a group of friends in Virginia. And I think when I'm there, I'll get to know more of what the heck was happening, because they were some of the best broadcasters on there. So I'll get to probably hear a good chunk of the story from that person. So yeah, that happened in September.
Right before you went on the trip.
Yep. I was like, oh wow.
But it was a little late to reroute the trip at this point.
Right. So I there was no more recording my favorite shows on Sunday nights and Tuesdays. A lot of broadcasters I used to enjoy listening to were gone. And
of course, by the time we got back on the trip, I talk about this in my Facebook post. There was no more Flashback Friday.
Right, Flashback Friday would disappear. That happened while I was gone as well. But I knew about that as it was happening because my roommate was keeping me updated and yada yada. That's on her stuff.
Yeah.
So then, we getting back to the end of the year. We're almost there.
So we put together this playlist after I've done the private solo show.
Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be a very good playlist. We would add songs that we liked as we went along, and on Christmas Eve, I did two things simultaneously. I listened to the TBRN Christmas Eve programming that they were doing, that I was archiving as well. At the same time, I was listening to the playlist in full, which ended up being, at that time, now it's actually grown since then, we're already getting ready for next year, but at the time it was just under 9 hours. Now I think we've broken 9 hours.
It's over, it's like 9 hours, certainly 9 hours and 15 minutes at minimum.
Right, and we're no doubt going to add to that when we come to next holiday season.
Yeah, I can see even in July we're adding to it.
Right, if we do the Christmas in July thing again. So, yeah, that was fun, and lots of good tunes in that, a lot of ones that some people don't even have. In fact, thanks to the Christmuse stream I talked about, there was at least 4 or 5 Christmas tracks that I added to our playlist thanks to that. I never would have heard them otherwise. Every year I always find something new to add, and that's where most of it came from this year.
And then we got to enjoy taquitos and mini corn dogs while we watched How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yep, and that was good. And we got to watch the good version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the 2003 2000 version with Jim Carrey and.
One of the earliest DVDs to have audio descriptive on it.
It might be the earliest one. It's the first one that I know of that had description on it. It's buried, but you can find it. Buried in the menus. And so we did, and it was awesome, and it was a good movie.
And you got to enjoy his radio.
And I got to enjoy my traditional radio.
Because the neighbor's fan.
And then the next day, the station I was listening to for Christmas music got nice and staticky because the neighbor's ceiling fan in their bathroom came on and kind of ruined that. So I went back to Christmuse. That was my online Christmas source that I would listen to, I believe, the rest of the day. Until we did our Christmas celebrations at your parents', which that was that pretty much was uneventful, except for when your dad opened your nephew's gift ahead of time.
Yeah.
Or was it the other way around? He
opened the gift he was giving to his grandson.
Right. It's like, well, now we get to wrap that back up again. That was hilarious.
And of course, I got some very nice gifts. I was surprised at who gave me what.
Oh yeah, that we should talk about that a little bit, just because of how it went down. Now, she thought that I was going to get her a nice fancy studio microphone called a Blue Yeti. It's a very, very nice microphone.
He was well aware of the humming issue that had come about with the one I've had.
With the older one, because, she'd had it for like 8 years. So I knew she wanted it. But, this year, obviously, with me having come back from a trip, funds were a little bit tighter this year. So I couldn't quite do that, but she didn't know that. I ended up getting her some movies.
And a TV series.
And a TV series that she likes. But I told her how much I spent in total on everything. And again, she got a surprise Echo 4th generation. Not you. Yeah, that. So she had no idea. I just told her how much I spent on Christmas gifts.
It was the exact price of the microphone.
Right. It ended up being the exact price of the microphone in total by the time you added everything up. Which I did that kind of deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
And we would give each other gift hints. And all I told her was, you're going to get a tiny gift and a big gift. And you thought all along the big gift was going to be the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew you were one of the TV series that you have. I knew you were getting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty sure you were getting the microphone, but I couldn't be totally sure.
Mm-hmm. Because
I was looking at a certain way of looking at your wish list that showed me that certain items that I knew you had weren't there anymore to my view.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I couldn't let on. So it was you thought for sure that I was getting you the microphone. Well, you didn't get the microphone from me. You got the microphone from your brother, I think?
With my parents.
Your parents, that's right. Your parents got you the microphone, and I got you the TV series, which is the exact reverse of what you thought would happen.
Yeah, because I thought, that TV series was one my brother liked when he was little. I thought my brother would have gotten me that.
Yep. So that was kind of cute in the end.
And of course, then I opened the big gift for me, and my mom's like, I thought she already has one of these.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, she does, but she doesn't have a 4th generation version that's upgraded from the 2nd generation. I had to tell her mom why you just got one. It was very amusing. So now, instead of a cup over here on the living room entertainment center, we now have a basketball. Because that's how the new design is of the new Amazon ECHO device. And I have to say it like that because of certain listening ears over across the room over there.
It used to be in the living room. It's now in the kitchen.
Right. She did some rearranging, and so now and that was the plan all along. Well, at least the living room part was going to get upgraded. That was my plan, and it was her idea to put. I wasn't sure what she was going to do with the old one.
The old one still worked.
Right. I thought she was either going to send it to a friend of ours, but you decided to keep it around.
I decided to, especially with it being winter right now, and it's harder to get out of here to
right.
mail stuff and all.
Right. So she decided to use it as a way she can easily do stuff on her devices while preparing food or whatever, because it's now in the kitchen.
Yeah, and it's much closer to me, so even when noisy stuff is happening in the kitchen, like water
on the sink or whatever, or the microwave running, she can still speak to it when the device in the living room may not hear her. So that is how that went down, and I ended up getting some pretty cool gifts. I got a scarf, got some gloves, so now I'm really set. I could go to Alaska, and I think I'd be set. Bring on the winter, I guess, now, because...
You finally got Star Trek, and we don't have the Saga of last year again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, did I mention that Saga? Because that was ongoing last year, during last year's review, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was ongoing.
That was, I don't know, should I bring that up, or should I...
Yeah, you can bring it up.
Okay. The Saga of Star Trek The Next Generation, we have to go back to the beginning of last year, and really Christmas of 2019 for this. So I had gotten Star Trek The Next Generation. We didn't think anything of it. We brought it back here.
We're going to watch it.
We're going to watch it. We put in what we think is the first disc of the first season, because it came from the season 1 pack. Or, we thought. We put it in the player. We hit play. And we hear, last time on Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm like, excuse me? I think that caught both of us by surprise, didn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen, I mainly know the opening and closing theme song, but I know enough for a series that the first episode is supposed to start with that.
Right, and so I'm like, what's going on here? I went and did some digging because Star Trek is actually on Netflix. Or at least it was then. It might still be. I haven't looked. It's also on CBS All Access, which I do subscribe to. So either way, I had multiple ways of checking it out. So I went digging, and it turns out that what I saw, it was episode 1 of season 4. So then we're like, what is going on here? So then we got on with Ira, which is our eyes when we need them, and we found out that what we had was, let's see if I remember this right. It was seasons 4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Right. 4, 5, 6, 7.
We had 2 copies of seasons 4, 5, and 6.
Right. That's what, because
we
we had the right number of packs, but the seasons were all, we had 2 copies of 4, 5, and we had 7 all by itself. That was fine. And it turns out we had 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 made up the other packs. We're like, oh great. So we had to put it back in there, and we had to, and this was very embarrassing. I remember, didn't I call your mom?
Yeah.
To explain this?
Yeah.
It was very embarrassing. It was like, that gift I got, that awesome Star Trek gift? We need to get it exchanged because there's something wrong here. And we explained the situation.
We came the next morning and got it.
Yep, she came the next day, picked it up, brought it back. Now, your dad is kind of the mastermind of that. It was basically his credit card that did all the work, and I'm grateful for that because he had to go through a lot. He sends it back. They get a replacement, I think, the next day. Yeah. Remember, he has Prime. He can do that.
But it's now.
But now,
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, now.
We didn't even see it.
Yeah, I didn't even see that one because we knew to check it. They knew to check it before even delivering it back to us.
Yeah.
So they check it, I think you got the word on that.
Yes, I did, and I sent it to you.
And you sent it to me. He's like, well, I have good news and bad news. Good news is you got a replacement. The bad news is it also is going to have to go back. I'm like, what? And then you explain how now you had 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 7. I'm like, oh, great. And now I'm thinking we're never going to get this thing. You know, had we kept the first and second packs,
we would have had a full.
We would have had a full set, and I could have.
We had 2 full sets. Here, my parents.
Enjoy your Star Trek copy, and I'll keep this one. Well, we tried one more time.
A third time was the charm.
A third time was finally the charm. We got
it at the end of the month of January. We have it.
And we have it all ripped and backed up, and it's all on the shelf and everything. We're good. So
then this Christmas you get Deep Space Nine, and I made sure to check it before you even
opened it up. Yeah, unwrapped the nice wrapping.
And it was correct.
And it was finally correct. I'm like, thank God we don't have to go through that again. So that's what she meant.
And another thing, you got to thank Nick from Santa Barbara for something.
Yes. Oh, yes. Nick from Santa Barbara gets a big thank you because he apparently knows Santa Claus.
Well, that and Ira.
And Ira, that's right. And I'll start with Ira, actually.
That happened back in November.
Ira
stopped giving us unlimited 5-minute calls.
Right. They did that in, I guess that was November, wasn't it?
Well, actually, that stopped in the summer, but we had that promotion.
That's right, where we could get 5 minutes every 4 hours or whatever it was, because we were.
Well, we had 5 minutes every 4 hours where we want to plan, but when we were getting advanced for the price of standard.
Right, that was I was trying to remember the promotion. So we had that for a few months, and then once that expired, obviously we couldn't pay for that, and we still wanted Ira, and Nick had offered. Nick is a friend of ours, by the way. I don't think I've ever mentioned him before. Mm-hmm. And he had offered, well, because you can still share minutes, because at least someone is paying for the plans. So he offered that we could share minutes. So you started.
Yep. Well, actually, you started because yours expired before mine.
Oh, did I? Okay,
then I started in mid-November.
That's right. Okay, I couldn't remember the order of it. But yeah, we got it set up. So by mid-November, we're both on his plan.
It's nice since now you could actually watch Next Generation and not use all the minutes just trying to find episodes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because we have a lot more minutes now to work with. Because, we have up to 300 of them. Per month.
371 if we bought add-on minutes.
Yeah, because there was some add-on minutes that were purchased a long time ago. So we have that little bonus as well. So I want to thank Nick for that. And then he knows Santa Claus, and both of us got a nice little financial Christmas gift on Christmas that courtesy of Santa Claus.
And then we get to New Year's.
And then we get to New Year's. Well, let me tell you something about Christmas Day. There was a major news event that happened on Christmas Day. I don't think you know much about this because I haven't said much, because it hasn't really affected anything we do or anything we know. But on Christmas morning, this is how crazy some people are. On Christmas morning, there was a 63-year-old maniac named Anthony Warner, I think was his name.
We also lost Alex Trebek this year.
Oh, yeah, we did lose Alex Trebek this year. Oh, I'll get to that here at the end here. So Anthony Warner was this, I guess he used to work for a communications provider or something, and he, I guess, had mental issues because he was convinced that something was wrong, that 5G was killing everybody, and he was going to put a stop to it. How's he going to put a stop to it? He's going to take an RV full of explosives, drive it to an AT&T communications facility, park the thing in front of it, and about 15-20 minutes before this happened, he plays an announcement. It says, "Please do not approach this vehicle. It's going to explode. Please evacuate." And this was a blaring message, so everybody could hear it. Then about 20 minutes later, bam! The whole thing, it blows up, and about 40 businesses around it were destroyed or nearly destroyed. And this is in like the heart of downtown. This is like,
like if this happened here on North Street.
Right. This is like, 2nd Avenue, right downtown Nashville. And it instantly knocked out cell service to a good chunk of that area. Pretty much all of Tennessee and parts of Alabama, and I think even a little bit of Georgia was caught up in that, because not only did that facility serve the local area, but it also connected surround.
Spectrum here is
Right.
Albany.
Serves Albany in that area. So it took out internet services for like 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and it took out some 911 services.
Talk about ruining Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that obviously clearly was his plan, but it's said that people can be that nuts, and nobody stopped him.
I can get crazy when I get mad, but I'm not even that nuts.
I don't think I could see you, I'm going to build some explosives and deliver them.
I wouldn't even know how to start building an explosive, okay? I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Right, and I don't think you would even have friends. Oh. Yeah. I hope I'm still going. I think I am. Hold on. Let me get my bearings. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. The phone dropped. Celeste moved, and the phone just right there.
Where my elbow was. I apologize.
Oh, okay. So sorry about that bit of video maneuvering there. So that's what he did on Christmas morning, and that was very, very sad because, well, he intended obviously to kill himself because he blew up. He died during that. And the only good silver lining that came out of that, I think only 2 or 3 people died because there wasn't very many people at the businesses.
But Dave was.
Right, and it was, he actually did. His intent wasn't really to kill so much as destroy the infrastructure, which, well, it was only short-lived. So had he been alive, he would be very disappointed. But see, you can't destroy everything. And first of all, 5G isn't killing anybody. It's the next wave of technology, and just deal with it. It's going to improve our ability to do things.
Sadly, though, we did lose a lot of people.
We did lose a lot of people. I mean, Alex,
including somebody right before your birthday. While I was on the air,
we lost Kenny Rogers. Yeah, Kenny Rogers. In fact, I had to give you the breaking news about that. Yeah, Kenny.
We lost a couple of people to COVID. I know.
Joe Diffie.
Joe Diffie
was an early one. Yep, he was. Like
Charlie
late.
Pride.
Charlie Pride. That was more recent. Charlie Pride was
toward the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay. And back in, was it early October? Yeah. We lost Alex Trebek. That was a huge.
No, in November.
That was in November.
And back in September and October, we lost Helen Reddy. We lost Eddie Van Halen.
Oh yeah, Van Halen was a big one.
We lost Johnny Nash and Mac Davis.
Oh, right.
All those people.
Right. I forget who Mac Davis was.
He's a country singer from the 70s.
Oh, that's right.
Had Boot Scootin' Cafe not been disappeared.
Yeah, he probably would have done a tribute to him. Yeah. Maybe even Charlie Pride, too, because he was a country singer, wasn't he?
Yep.
Kind of.
And same with Joe Diffie.
Right. And, of course, Joe Diffie. I remember I recorded a country tribute that was done on another station. It's the one show I have of this particular Country Through the Years, I believe it was called.
On the mix, yeah.
And I recorded. He did it. I recorded it specifically because he did a Joe Diffie tribute.
Oh, right. But then we lost Alex. Alex Trebek had been, for anyone who's living under a rock, had been fighting pancreatic cancer for a couple of years at least. Yep. And he was determined to fight this thing.
He thought he would make it through. He was optimistic. You should have seen him.
Hosting Jeopardy.
He would be in pain in hosting Jeopardy. I mean, it was amazing how he could just keep going. And then, but finally...
Put it this way, it's a good thing my dad doesn't watch these, because he has more tolerance than my dad does. He was grumbling at my birthday. Okay?
Yeah, he had to actually lay down, and yeah, your dad would not have been able to host Jeopardy. But Alex Trebek, it's actually bittersweet, because he died, and he was so determined to do Jeopardy that he had been recording episodes of Jeopardy to air later. His most recent taping had been just a week and a half before he died. I mean, you want to talk about eerie. Those episodes are still airing. In fact, I believe the last of those are going to air next week. And I believe we're going to watch one of them. The last one he ever did.
Yeah, I see it now. You're going to come out here to the TV right before 7:30. Time to watch Jeopardy. We're watching this.
We're watching Jeopardy tonight. We don't normally watch Jeopardy unless there's a reason to.
Like we saw the very first episode.
That was cool. We got to do that this year. Because, during the pandemic, there wasn't as many chances for contestants to be there. So they re-aired some old episodes, and there were some good ones in there. three-way ties and the very first episode ever from Alex Trebek, which was in 1984. He had been
born.
Right. He had been hosting Jeopardy for 30 plus years. He is going to be a hard person to replace. So we rest in peace, Alex Trebek. I think that's the biggest loss for me.
Out of everybody we lost this year, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Diffie. Talk about, he was the first person we lost to COVID that I recognized.
Yeah. And then, didn't a friend of yours lose somebody? The Vicky son?
Let me think. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they lost somebody to COVID. We actually even know an IRA agent that had COVID.
Yep.
They recovered, thank goodness.
And of course, the person that caused me to leave the mix suffered from COVID.
Right, that he had COVID. So we know a few people that have had it. Most of them have recovered, but it's scary stuff.
So we understand the virus is real.
It's definitely real, and I've never doubted that throughout this whole thing. I've never doubted that. I just, wish we could get a handle on it. I mean, right, even now, as I end this, and I think I'm pretty much done. As I end this,
because on the last day of the year we enjoyed our Liberty Pizza.
Yeah, we had our Liberty Pizza tradition, but we had to do different drinks this year because they didn't have they only had one Pepsi. We normally do Pepsis, bottles of Pepsi, and they only had one. So Celeste got the one, and we got root beer, which was nice. I hadn't had root beer in quite a while. I couldn't tell you when. I want to say I had one when I was on my trip, but I couldn't tell you where. So, because my trip was so exciting, it's hard to remember everything I ate.
And then, of course, that we rang in the New Year with ginger ale.
Yep.
And our first meal was from Taco Bell.
And was that good?
Wait. DoorDash gift card.
Oh, yes, because I had gotten her a $100 DoorDash gift card for Christmas. And I bet you didn't see that one coming. That was a nice.
See, I thought that was my tiny gift.
Yep.
I thought that was my tiny gift.
That was your tiny gift.
That was my big gift. I'm thinking, that gift is coming.
This is going to be great. And you ended up getting everything you thought, but from different people.
Yeah.
And the tiny gift was a nice surprise because you thought you were going to get it all along, but you thought that you didn't. You thought I was going to, give it to you at your parents or something.
Mm-hmm.
But nope. It was a nice. I love how I did that. So we've done that. We've had our first meal. In fact, it was so good that we're still not hungry from it. We just had some Coke, but no meal with it because we weren't hungry. So that's that. I mean, that's the year in review. We got through it somehow. It was the weirdest year ever. There's no denying it.
Mm-mm.
It was. 2020 was not the year that I had hoped by any means. I had hoped to be telling you about the baseball game I attended.
Going to Canada
and whether I got through or not. I had hoped to tell you about the convention I may have attended. Or even without that, I would have told you about the 4th of July parade. I would have, mentioned the video I would have made about that. Because I would have gone out there and, just done a little bit of video from there. Thursday I would have gone to that. Tanglewood would have been exciting. Just all these things. And even if I'd gone on a trip, because I probably still would have done that, I would have done things more on that trip. I mean, I probably would have gone...
You might have gone to Virginia.
I might have gone to Virginia. I probably would have gone to eat in all these places, eat out more than I did even, because there would have been... Every place would have been open. I might have even gone to, do a little bit of casino gameplay, and not worried about social distancing or anything. It would have been a fun year. And this year was just, I guess, weird is the best way I can describe it. It wasn't totally bad, because like I said, I did save my sanity by going on that 6-week trip. But it was just different. And I'm among hope that this year will be even slightly better than last year. I hope that the hope that we had in March when we did the Empire State Building with the Z100... the radio station. Yeah, I hope we'll finally get to see that this year. I mean, there are vaccines coming out. Hopefully the numbers will finally come down because they don't seem to be coming down. I read earlier that it took over 200 days to get to 10 million cases and only 54 days after that to get to 20 million cases.
And I'm getting messages about half the state now have them.
Right, and they even told us, there was no crowds in Times Square other than a few first responders and media to give us the the coverage from last night. That was weird, too.
Even the Thanksgiving Day parade, a lot of it was pre-taped.
Yeah, that's another thing. I might have even been really weird and tried to go to it. That's the other, I mean, I was hoping to go to New York City in 2020. That obviously never happened. Will it happen this year? I mean, I can't even predict this year at this point. I've tried to do that in the past. This year, I'm not even going to try. Because
at this point, I can only set goals that I know that if I apply myself, I can complete pandemic or otherwise.
Right. You know, we can get more movies. We can get, you know, electronic goodies like hard drives. You know, we'll be able to do that.
I can do radio shows.
We can do radio shows. We can write stories. Well, she can write stories way better than I could, but you get the point. We
almost have to plan on things we know we have control over.
Right.
Because that's the thing. So much of what was affected this year is stuff I can't fix.
Nope, and neither can I. And it's been weird, and I feel bad for the 7-year-olds and 5-year-olds that have had to do online schooling. That is not easy. One of my friends that I saw during my trip, they have a 5-year-old? Well, they have several kids of different age ranges. I know one of them is 5, I'm pretty sure. And they're trying to do virtual schooling, kindergarten. I'm like, what? It's not easy. I mean, you pretty much have to stand over them the whole time.
Yeah.
And keep them from... And then, you know, Celeste here has a nephew who wants to play Minecraft rather than do schoolwork. And, you know, you're at home. You think you can do these things. And you as a kid, you know, how are you going to... That's not
Especially
easy.
when their mothers have to work.
Right. So that's...
She was working from home.
Mm-hmm. Many people were. And those that couldn't, either didn't at all, or like in the case of my friend Stephanie in Virginia, she still chooses to go home, to work from outside the home at the office.
Yeah, she was lucky enough to still have a job.
Right, and she still does, so I wish her luck that it continues to be that way. So, there's the year in review. I don't think I missed anything this time. We covered all the big news stories that mattered to me.
Yep.
I mean, there were big fires in Australia at the beginning of last year that I feel bad for that. Of course, there were fires out west.
Yep,
there were lots of fires out west. Oh, my God. It felt like the entire west coast was burning for a while. And some of those fires, you could see them while I was out there.
And you were very lucky to not get too near them.
Right. I was nowhere near...
new burns, anyway.
I
got over my sunburns, and I got burned by this fire.
By the fire, right. I was nowhere near any of the fires, but they were visible. You could see the smoke all across. Pretty much once you got past New Mexico, in Arizona, you could start to see them. I mean, they basically covered from California up to even Reno. You could see there was smoke from nearby fires up there. So they're just now beginning to get good rainfall over there. So finally the fires have calmed down. But boy, for many weeks, for much of the summer, it was Burn City out west.
It's pretty scary.
So glad I didn't
Pandemic or otherwise, you'd have to be careful.
Yeah, that would have been, so that was the other big thing. I wish everybody a happy 2021, and may it be a even remotely better year than much of last year was. We'll get a new president. Hopefully things will be useful. We got a nice start to the new year with the surprise, well, not really a surprise, but I didn't expect it this soon, the surprise arrival of round 2 of the stimulus relief because of the pandemic. It's not as much as a lot of people would have liked, but at least it's something. So we're hanging on to that and hoping the rest of the year can go well. So everybody take care, Happy New Year, and good riddance to 2020. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And have a nice day. You have anything else you want to say, Celeste? I think that's it for me.
I can't think of anything else, so...
I'll talk to you next year. Hopefully I'll make more than 2 videos this year.
Yeah.
Because the only other video I made was my coronavirus rant from 2020. And that was 2 months into the pandemic. Perhaps I'll do another one at the 1-year point.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. That'll be May 11th if I do one.
Actually, May 11th from the video.
Right. Yeah, from the time I do that. I might do one on March 11th. That would be the 1-year mark from the official one.
Yeah.
We'll see. But, any major event, I'll try and do a video of it. We'll see what happens. And that's 2020, all of it, in the last, probably hour and a half, just like last year. Take care. See you next year, hopefully well before.